Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Carl Lee, where sports, culture, and community intersect. Join Carl and frequent co-host Hollis Lewis as they dive into engaging conversations with guests from all walks of life. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Let the conversation begin on Let's Talk.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and Hollis Lewis is my co-host, who's the project director of crisis intervention teams and community programming. Let's Talk is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. You can visit Frank Walker at FrankWalkerLaw.com. Hollis, we're in a kind of a crazy situation when it comes to football. Season just got started.
Yeah.
All kinds of bad news. And I know that you had mentioned to me about, you had some questions and some conversation that you were interested in. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you kind of go with it and see where we go.
So as we know, if you've been paying attention to the NFL, Miami Dolphin quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, I've been practicing that as well.
I was gonna say I had no shot at that.
Tua Tagovailoa. We'll just say Tua for right now. But yeah, he has his fourth concussion within the past physical year, not necessarily the season, but within the past physical year. This one looked pretty bad. And I guess what I was wondering from you, from a former player, kind of just what are your general thoughts? I'll ask some more specific questions, but just what are your general thoughts when you see a guy who suffered that many concussions within that shorter period of time?
And I've actually talked to a friend of mine. We had a brief conversation about that specific situation, not even just him, but that specific situation when you are laying there on the turf, sitting on the sidelines, go back home, get ready for whatever's coming next as far as practice.
Yeah.
It is the routine that you get in, and it is the love of the game that makes you say, okay, I understand that I had a concussion. I understand that, the risk that comes with it, but I still want to play. Mm-hmm. And I think where Tua is, I think hopefully, he's in that place of like, maybe this is not for me maybe I shouldn't continue this. Maybe this could be a really bad situation for me going forward after I'm done playing.
But, well, let's say it from this perspective, like I'm just trying to get you back in player mode, and if you can kind of jump into maybe his mindset or his situation, I'll say that's a better.
Okay.
That's better. But so you jumping in a situation, you are starting, you got a ton of money on the line. I'm
playing.
You're doing well. Team is doing good. You're steadily improving. Like, what are you doing? What are you thinking right now?
I'm playing. I'm playing. Okay, you've already you put me on IR, so that's 4 weeks. I know I got to be out 4 weeks. Hey, man, if I'm out for 4 weeks, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be ready to play. In spite of long term, because I'm not thinking long term. I'm thinking, and especially if you're having a good season, the key component for that is, hey, maybe it's the Super Bowl. Maybe I can be the guy who can help get us to the Super Bowl. I can get us into the playoffs. All of those kinds of things, all those things matter.
So in this situation, are you just thinking about
Absolutely.
the game? Are you not really considering health? I mean, like what's that thought process?
I'm sitting on the sidelines against the Lions, and I don't have a clue of the play that I just made. But all I can think about is getting back in the game.
And this is from your playing days.
From my playing days. Like I'm out. Like I'm literally out on the turf. And today, like I said, and I've probably said this before, I don't know what happened short of going back and looking at the film, I'm on the sidelines. Like, I don't even remember the play. Like, I remember going to make the tackle, and then after that, I'm on the sidelines smelling sauce. How many fingers? Hey, I want to go back in. Because there's something that is addictive to in playing football that you chase, that you want, you know, and I don't want to try to compare it to like some kind of major drug or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like,
I got you
want to be on the field, and if you want to take that injury and push it behind you. Man, I'm playing with pins in my wrist. Doctors telling me if you try to catch yourself, you're going to break your forearm. You know, the worst thing is tuck it and you separate your shoulder. You know, so I got those options, and I'm like, okay.
Okay, so let's move it fast forward maybe to today's game, because I think today's game, not only you thinking about self-preservation, but you're also thinking about, you know, you have the business side of it, and I think that's a little bit more prevalent. Like, if you're thinking of it from a player's perspective from today's era, how are you? Would the process still be the same?
Sitting in the seat talking to you and you asking me that question, I would be thinking to myself, like, okay, what's my financial situation? Can I actually leave the game and be okay? That would cross your mind. Sitting across the seat from you.
No. I'm just saying, if you jumped into like being a player today with all the money, all the endorsements, and all the things that our players are privy to today.
See,
do you still have the same mindset as that you're just trying to get back in the game, trying to play, or does all the business stuff start to weigh heavier?
See, what I think, the way that I can only picture it, like, it's going to be the same of you wanting to play. You don't want to leave the game because you think there's more that you got that you can give to the game, and you don't want to leave it. But you also understand the risk that you're taking. And I think you're going to have more people telling you to step away from the game. You got to take care of yourself. You got to be more careful for yourself. But me, sitting in that situation, I'm thinking, okay, I got 4 weeks. That's plenty of time for me to recover, and I'm right back in the seat.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm right back into the seat.
Yeah, because we got to remember Tua just got that $200 million too, and I think we discussed earlier that, you know, depending on how he left, if he was like medically forced to, or if he stepped away, that would depend on that would dictate
how much of that money, if not all of it, he could get.
Yeah. And I think he gets to keep the signing bonus regardless.
The bonus is once you sign, the bonus is yours.
Yeah,
you know, now if it's not any kind of playing bonus or anything, but a signing bonus, you sign, they're obligated to that amount.
Okay, yeah.
So that's that part of it is already set.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some sort of insurance and all that other stuff as well. So I guess my question is, and kind of moving on from that, are we going to get to a point where we, you know, regulate that sort of these injuries out of the game?
I don't think that you can. You've changed how you can hit, but you can't change how these spontaneous situations that happen in the game. Like, so you're a quarterback. So you're standing in the pocket with the ball. Somebody comes and hits you face on, but you go straight down to the ground, and the first thing that hits is your head.
Yep. And that's happened too.
And that's concussion opportunity too. It doesn't have to be me hitting you and you hitting me in the head, us being head to head. It's head to knee. It's head to the ground. Yeah. It's all of that.
And I think people outside of the game, maybe who aren't familiar or never really played, they don't really understand that part of it. Like, to me, the game is the game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter how much you regulate it. It doesn't matter, you know, what rules you put in place. You're not going to prevent these sort of injuries from happening because, like you said, even in this last instances, Tua was running. I mean, he's running hard as he can go, trying to make the play, and he actually runs into somebody's thigh and abdomen area at full speed.
Yeah,
and these guys are brick hard. You know what I'm saying? And that guy's running at you.
Yes,
and it happened that way. So it wasn't helmet to helmet. Wasn't some violent hit.
And you can and the buddy that I was talking to, one of the things that there's a realization of football is it's different than anything else because it's you can make a case that nobody's trying to make a pass interference. Nobody's trying to have a personal foul in the manner in which they hit you.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Sense, yeah.
What happens though in the process of the game, the movement and the instant that you make contact, where you make contact, where you thought you were going to make contact, what are you going to do when I'm coming to hit you?
Yeah.
You're coming down.
You coming down or you going up, and then that changes where
that
the
changes where all that contact is. Or you're running at me and I'm running at you, and you hit me. And I'm like thinking, well, shoot, I thought I was going to make the tackle. Next thing I know, I'm falling back, and where's my head going? It's going to the turf.
Yeah. So let me ask you a different question. Kind of going back to, because I heard you say you talked to a buddy of yours. I'm assuming that's a former player,
yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So seeing some of your contemporaries maybe not doing so good mentally, we don't have to mention names, nothing like that. Does that change how you think about, if you continue playing, if you sustain all these various hits?
I think
because some guys are messed up.
There's a lot of guys that are messed up, and I've had quite a few friends that have passed on because of that.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, if you ask any one of those guys, even guys who are struggling with any kind of results of CTE, and ask them, would you play again? They would tell you yes, with no hesitation.
Well, I don't think the question is playing again. I'm saying Tua suffering all those concussions in this shorter period of time in his NFL career. And what we don't know how many he suffered in college. Right. And we certainly don't know how many he suffered in high school and beyond.
Because that's different.
Right? Practicing all that.
I think... well, let me just say it this way. Me as a former player, me knowing seeing what I've seen with other friends and former players and players in different places, I would if I were to sit down with him, I'd be like, man, look, I get it. I get what you're going for. Mm-hmm. You want to be as good, as great as you possibly can be at this game, at your position. You want the notoriety that comes with it. You want the money that comes with it. The question is, are you prepared to not to be able to enjoy any of it?
That's a cold reality right there.
That
kind of changes things.
Yes.
That sort of backs you into a corner, right?
Because at the end of the day, no one would have thought to give me that simplicity of saying, okay, look, you're sitting on the sideline, they didn't, you can see the three fingers. You didn't already had the little ammonia that's kind of got you back on. You don't remember the play, but do you want to go back in?
Yeah.
In hindsight, no, I'll go ahead and sit the rest of this one out. If that's going to help my memory today, I would have been willing to sit that out.
But if you say that, then you know the consequences of saying something like that.
Yes, because
particularly in your era, you couldn't say that.
No way.
In your era, there's no way to say that.
There's no way. I'm not. And see, coaching at State, one of the things that I didn't care if a player wanted to play. My thoughts were, I don't care if you want to play. If you had any kind of head injury, if that was an issue, bro, you wasn't playing. Yeah. You just not playing. Because I know that I played when I shouldn't have played.
Yeah.
And I know that somebody should have known. Somebody should have shut me down.
Somebody should have said something. I just look at and again, I'm sort of comparing apples to oranges, right? I look at somebody like James Lights Out Tony. He was a boxer during the 90s, middleweight, welterweight, and all that sort of good, really, really good boxer. They showed a comparison of him talking at the beginning of his career. He played quarterback when he was in high school, played football. And he was fluid. He was very lucid. He had a good mouthpiece. And they showed him today talking, and it just sounds like two different people. You can see the cognitive decline. So, and I say that to say, if I'm Tua, you probably made a boatload of money by now. You'll have a tremendous opportunities to coach, to stay around the game, to be a broadcaster, do podcasts. You'll have opportunities to still work inside the game. Maybe those opportunities that you didn't have during that time because we didn't have social media and all this other, it was like limited spots. So I don't know if I would want to continue to play and risk my mental health, because again, we're not just talking about a slowed down cognitive ability. If you get so many hits to the head, you don't know how that's going to change your brain structure. You don't know that you may have some onset of some mental illness. You don't know that part of it, right?
Right.
There's guys that's left the game that was great. You look at a guy like Junior Seau. Nobody in the world would have ever thought that would have been the result, right? So I don't know if I would be willing to risk that. And then also, I don't know how you play with reckless abandonment. I don't know how you continue to play just free. But again, we're talking about documenting. I say I think it was fourth. This is the fourth concussion within a physical year.
That makes no sense.
And we're not talking about a guy who just got his bell rung. We're not talking about those. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Sometimes you got your bell rung. You walk to the sidelines. We're talking a guy.
That was just a good hit.
Yeah, it's a good hit, right? We're talking about a guy. I'll just sit out the game. You'll be back. Your practice Monday. We'll get back rolling. We're talking about a guy who's on the sideline with his hands in a very strange position, like he was, you know, suffering.
And again, I think I want to keep going back, because that mindset of who's going to take the game away from me. Players back in those days, I'm not going to let you take the game away from me.
I think players still think like that today, though, too, as well.
But and what's crazy to me, the money that they can make now, or the money that they've made now, the moment that you start to tell me, the moment I start feeling like, you know, I've taken too many of these kinds of hits, I'd like to think that I would know when it would be time to walk away.
And I think that decision is easier with $100 million in the bank.
I think so too.
Because you look at guys like Aaron Donaldson, right? He just retired. Aaron Donaldson probably could have played another 3 or 4 like productive seasons at D-line, and he just walks away, right? That wasn't necessarily happening in your day, particularly when you were at that higher level.
Everybody wanted to be able to say, you know, when they're done, I played 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I played 11 years.
And you might have had to play that in order to bank up.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question.
Yeah.
You legitimately needed to get those kinds of years. So every season, no matter what the impact that football was playing on you physically, mentally, emotionally, you still had to love it.
Yeah.
And I think football's the craziest sport to love, simply because the longer you play it, the harder you play it, it doesn't always benefit you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of sports, though. I think if you look at, you know, and I always say this, they talk about like football is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport. It's not a contact sport. It's beyond contact. But even when you look at like those old basketball players, like Kenny the Jet Smith, they have like those knock knee. They'll have those like knee and problems. They'll have like deformities almost. And I say that like I don't say that disparagingly. They'll just look the body be shaped a little different because how hard they went. So let me ask you 2 more questions on this. Like, and again, I'm not trying to get in your pocket and nothing like that. But far as NFL retirement, like, what does that look like far as like the retirement pension plans and different things like that? Like, does you have to be like 55, 60 to get it? And like, how much you getting based off the number of years, or is that just strictly your own investments?
No, it's based off of.
So every player gets this. Every player can qualify for this.
Yeah, everybody can qualify after. At one point, it was 3 years and 3 games.
Okay.
And I think it may have gone to 4 to 4 games that you have to be on an active roster. Okay, so that qualifies you for the minimum benefits. Okay, so and according to X number of years that you play, the more retirements you get. You know,
Because we heard it was like, I mean, the way we always heard it, maybe I need to do my research on it, but it was like you get a certain dollar amount per year that you played. And that's like your monthly retirement.
Yes, like so. If you take your retirement, it's a monthly payout.
And when can you draw that?
You can draw it as, I think it's early as 55, and of course, if you wait till 60, if you wait till 65, it's pretty much, structured the same way for everybody else. The longer you don't take it, the more that it can be.
Okay, gotcha.
But as you know, like for most players back in the day, I know players who were literally, couldn't wait to get to it. Like, they needed to get to it, and, but again, when you go back and you start to look at football in the 60s, 70s, early 70s for sure, man, those dudes were just playing ball.
Yeah, I mean, that was a different day.
Yeah, they were simply playing ball. Yeah. They weren't, there was no luxury of, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to be set for life.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as the proven business model that it became in the 80s,
right?
And the 90s.
And in 83, they created a minimum wage of $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine you're on a football roster and you're getting paid $40,000, and and people would talk about, well, how did he go broke? Well, what you thought he was making, is not really what he was making. And then when you start to look at, there's not a person even on a practice squad making that type of money.
Yeah,
they're making. They're well into the six digits on the practice squad, and so football is a benefit if you can do it, and wherever it is that you do it. But I think when we start talking about the injuries, we start talking about the situations that on the younger level, especially, that the game is it's different there. It's different because I'll make the case that part of the reasons that I think it impacts young kids, the injuries that come up, it's just because the development isn't there yet, and they're making the type of contact that your body's not used to.
And I got a question on that too, but just to clarify, so 40,000 in 1983 would be valued at $122,000 today. So that's pretty decent money back in the day. That wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. You had some dough back then.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It wasn't bad.
The benefit of that rationale there is, things were cheaper and all those kinds of things.
So but with inflation and everything,
I'm not really sold on that.
You're not sold on that?
No.
All right. So let me ask you a final question on this. Like, you are a youth coach. You obviously coach at the collegiate level. You coach at the high school level. And one thing you were always pretty particular on was equipment. So do you think with like the Guardian caps and new technology that may be able to lessen some of the injuries, particularly when it comes to concussions?
I would go this far, okay? If I'm in the political realm, hint, I would start to talk about youth sports and those caps being like mandatory, because these little kids they fall and can hit their head.
That's a political landmine that I would never step on, because what we just said about Tua, it's a point where it's a 6-year-old is not necessarily going to give another 6-year-old some concussion by hitting hard, right? That's not necessarily probably going to be the case. But to our point, if you're running full speed at me, I'm running full speed at you, even at 6 years old, my head hits your knee, I don't know if a guardian cap or anything else protects that. Or if I fall, get tackled a certain way, my head hits the turf.
But what we do know for a fact already, okay, that without it, there's an issue.
I mean, maybe so. You may
no, there's
be right.
not a maybe so. No, there's not a maybe so because that's the conversation that we're having.
Well, you mean with the guardian caps and different things?
I'm saying without the guardian cap, we know there's an issue.
Yeah, definitely.
So to add it, what harm are we doing?
I mean, you may be right in that end. I just think I'm not sure. And again, I would probably set myself up, but I'm just not sure that kids ought to be playing tackle football, honestly. Well, I'm not sure that, a kid that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 should be playing tackle football.
See, and
I'm not sure.
I do youth football, okay?
Yeah.
And so, and we're actually practicing today. And I would say this to that comment. We didn't start when I was playing. We started at 7.
That's when we started. Yeah. And
to me, when you start talking about 4 and 5, I think that if they want to play football, I think that's flag. I'm cool with flag with equipment on so that they're used to it.
I'm saying anybody probably under about maybe 11, 12. I'm not sure that you ought to be playing tackle football. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just don't know, and I haven't done enough research to say. But I'm just not sure. Again, outside of us, and we've talked this to death, and I don't want to go down this road. But outside there being some, regulations at a county, state, like a governmental body where you can actually regulate these things, right? Because again, youth sports have done a great job of, they don't practice as much as we did. They don't hit as much as we did. There's regulations on that, and they try to teach you heads up football, which is awesome and great. And that's what they should be doing. But again, even with heads up football, you're not going to prevent an injury like Tua had. That's not about heads up football. That's just football.
That's the reality of the football. Yeah. And we're getting ready to go to break, but I want to say this before we go.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, or even wrongfully arrested. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Years old, they don't have a clue. They don't even know to protect themselves. They don't even know that they are at risk. And I don't want to hurt youth football, at all. But I'm thinking that I think there's a reason for us to consider trying to fix it.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, or even wrongfully arrested. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Find previous episodes of Let's Talk at WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. This is Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and we've spent the first, I guess, half of the show talking about football and its injuries. I don't know, Hollis, as we wrap this up, I know that, I know how football has impacted me and my life and the things that I have to do to function as normal as I possibly can be. Yeah. I just think that, football is a great game.
Yeah.
But I think that we do need people to step in it. And to your point about not really liking to speak on some of this kind of stuff, I think the people who should be talking about this stuff should be guys who have formerly played.
Yeah.
I think there should be a committee built around players who have played the game to make these decisions. It's kind of like, not that we're going to go here, but like when you start talking about transferring, you start talking about all these different kind of rules and regulations and things that you should be able to do. I'm not sure that a suit and tie is the person that makes that up. I think that, why wouldn't you have a committee and say, okay, when we're going to deal with sports, we're going to have a sports committee, and we want to get the impact, what we think these kinds of changes could be from these players. These people that are former players. Because a lot, and I hate to say this, but, some of these issues, the whole transfer issue starts because a dad wants somebody to participate in a sport when they change schools. So changes the whole rule, that changes the whole dynamics, the whole landscape of sports.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the issue and why we're having these issues.
I would agree with that, and I think that when we're talking about rule change, I think one of the things that hurts football is that it's too. They change rules too. They sort of nitpick at football, whereas like a sport like baseball, they don't move fast enough. Where they're starting to catch up. But I think that if we did have like a body, it needs to be comprised of a variety of individuals so you can get a lot of viewpoints. And I think it also needs to be maybe not associated, like its own association. Maybe if nothing else, to just make rule recommendations. Well, so it's not like working in the interests of college football or anybody else. It's its own entity. It's separate. It's just giving an analysis, and it's making the rule recommendations and putting it out to the public.
And you're saying who would be part of that?
I would say, you would have former coaches, former players, you would have referees, you would have doctors, you would have mental health, behavioral health professionals.
I think that would be perfect.
Have lawyers, judges, politicians, and just maybe and I would say moms and dads as well. So you would just have a very diverse board of individuals who are approaching this thing from a different perspective, various perspectives, in order to, flush out some of these rules. And I think that what that would do, it would let everybody not necessarily have a voice at the table, but you would hear all the different concerns. So because sometimes we're not looking at it from, we may not look at it from a player standpoint. You're just looking at it from, like you said, a suit or an exec.
Right. And again, sometimes the whole start of these situations are created because somebody's wanting to do something for their child.
Yeah, their child or their interest.
Yes, their
team,
interest. Yes, exactly. You know what I mean? Exactly.
So we got your boys, the Thunder and Herd. They're going to see them Buckeyes. Could they pull it off?
Marshall has had that, and especially with Coach Huff.
They beat Notre Dame. They beat Virginia Tech.
They have been able to pull off some games that you would absolutely just know for a fact they are not going to win, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm Ohio State, okay, and I'm the coach there, I'm telling you that this team, that Marshall Thunder and Herd team, has beaten this team and that team.
See,
so they're going to come in here and assume
that they got a chance.
They got a chance, because can't nobody tell them that they don't have a chance.
I think this is one of those weeks in which you just pop in the tape, Marshall versus Notre Dame, press play. Let's just watch it, guys.
Yes.
Notre Dame was ranked, all that. Virginia Tech, Marshall. Let's watch it, guys. If you
might be the only games that I'd watch.
That's the only thing I'm watching. because I think physically, obviously Marshall's going to be a little bit outmatched, but I don't think. And again, I'm not sure. I don't think Ohio State, based off of that, is going to come and sleepwalk through this game. I can't see that based on Marshall's record, how they do. Because that's the reputation of Coach Huff. He'll win the big one, but he'll lose the little ones.
Yes, and again, there's no reason that I would have ever thought in my 4 years at Marshall that Marshall would even be playing some of these teams.
Yeah,
more or less winning.
Yeah.
Okay. And that magic is something that I think sells kids to come to Marshall.
Yeah.
And what happens is you have some major D1 players on that roster.
Yeah, from Ohio.
Yeah. you know, like,
yeah, you know, Coach Hill put that out there too.
Yeah. And so you want to play against those guys.
Yeah.
You want to, because you know that you belong there. You could play there if you really wanted to. So I think one of the things that I think that Coach Huff has done for Marshall is he has built a confidence in games where they should not have a chance to win, and they come out and win it.
Yeah.
Can I say that I think that they're gonna win? There's absolutely no way I can say it.
I don't know, man. I think if it's like week 1, week 2, where, you know, maybe you just haven't had the time, you're excited to play, you're looking at Marshall, but really you're looking at, you know, Ohio State, you're looking at Notre Dame, you're looking at if Ohio State was kind of looking past whoever else they had to play. But I think it's because you're getting I think this is the 4th week of the season, you're a little bit more settled in. And like I said, I think if I'm the coaching staff, we watching Virginia Tech Marshall, we watching Notre Dame Marshall. And if you come here slipping, you come here sleeping, this is what's going to happen to you. So I think their ambitions is bigger. So I would be hard pressed to bet against Ohio State, but you know, you never know what Marshall can do. But and I also say that with the caveat that, you know, the games that I've watched from Marshall, just the offensive play just has not been there. It's been a struggle offensively this year.
I was gonna go there because I don't know if I've seen yet Marshall being dominant on the offensive side.
Yeah.
And I do think I'm not sure they have come up to the level in which they need to be on defense.
Yeah.
I think it's good, but I think you got secondary issues. Mm-hmm. And you know, so now if there's any opportunity that you can throw the ball and you can run the ball, now you're really in trouble.
Yeah. And I think a game like this, again, you never want to, again, because Marshall's proven us wrong a few times now, but all in all, I think this is a game you want to stay in. You don't want to get blown out. You want to put up some points. You want to have some production in the game, even if it's 21 to 50 something or 21 to 40 something. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You want to have production. You want to show a little something in this game.
And I don't even care personally. I don't even care if that's, let's say, State. They put some guys in, some of their second strings guys in to go in and play, so they're subbing, and we still score.
Yeah.
I'm fine, because what that's telling me is that my team is not going to quit.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So to me, I think if there's anything that I think Marshall has the opportunity to prove, play that game all the way out.
Yeah.
Play that game from the start of the clock to the last tick of it, and play hard. And score on the last drive.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm going to – so let me switch it back to – let's talk about the coach. You know, people are saying, okay, so if this game gets out of hand, this should be, you know, Huff could be in trouble. Is this the game you really want to measure? Is this – because I don't see – I'm with you. Like, this is the game that you should be happy that maybe that they've – schedule, you know, I don't know why. You know, maybe it's money. But yeah, it's probably money. So that benefits the future for Marshall.
Yeah.
So you take that loss, mm-hmm. and move on. You probably don't even want to watch the film.
Yeah.
If you lose it bad, you're probably not even going to watch the film. You're getting right into next week.
Yeah, that's one of them games.
So,
and if I'm coaching, I would want to. Again, obviously, you come in a game, you want to win.
No player does not want to win.
But if you see it's getting out of hand, then I would want to get my guys, get the roster in the game. Let everybody play. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I want to get out healthy is the main thing. When we talk about Tua, right? You don't want to have your players, especially the guys you're going to be dependent on throughout the season, banged up, just trying to, prove a point. So I don't know. I agree with that. And I hope that, we can have a good showing.
Yeah. And now, before because you look like you get ready to switch on me. Yeah. let me ask this question because, I'm hearing people that are talking, that, okay, now, people starting to mumble that, we'll make it through the season. Where is that at? Do you think that that he's at that juncture, or is it fan base?
I think, man,
have an issue more so than maybe.
I think we're going to have to see how the season plays out. Again, to your point, we can't make this week. Come on, guys, with this. Yeah. We're not judging that off this week, but I think if you can, because I think it's what Conference USA now, or excuse me, Sun Belt.
Sun Belt.
So I think if you can, be competitive in the Sun Belt, I think you could, he'll last. But I think, and I was going to switch gears because the same conversation is going on with Neil Brown and WVU.
Right.
And to me, that's more of a you got to beat Kansas this week. Y'all both 1-2. And I think that people aren't necessarily seeing the improvements in the steps, right? Because we're thinking at this point, WVU is going to be competing for a Big 12 title. Marshall's going to be competing for a Sun Belt title. So I think that's where people want to be at this point. Not necessarily that you're winning or you're going undefeated, but you got to be competing. And for WVU, you got to kind of be at this point knocking on the door of the college playoff with 12 teams.
And do you think they're knocking?
No, they're not.
I was gonna say, I don't know. And believe it or not, I'm a Neil Brown kind of fan. Like I like some of the things that he has said, and kind of like just kind of his whole mannerisms and stuff like that. I kind of enjoy that, but I just don't know if it's enough to motivate the kids to go out. I'm talking about kids, but the young men out to play.
I just don't know how you compete when I don't know how you, because if you're looking at the old Big East days, right, where a lot of the talent pool was coming from Florida, you're coming from Georgia, and you're just really coming up through the pipeline because you have Miami there. Those kids were staying on the East Coast. Parents get to see them in and out a lot. I just don't know how you compete at a Big 12, in the Big 12, trying to recruit in Texas. I mean, I don't know if that's the plan. I don't know how much they're recruiting down there, but you would seem like you would try to get some of those pool of players, but there's so many colleges and teams and organizations they could play for down there. What's the incentive to come to WVU? So it's to me, I just don't know if we're getting the consistent talent like we used to get.
And that makes sense because if you are at a WVU level, is there another team that WVU plays recruiting you also?
I'm sure it is. That's what I'm saying.
And if that be the case, what's going to be your judgment of which one of those picks? So when you're thinking about going to college, and you're looking to get a scholarship, and you got two schools, and one school's got a great football history, one school is struggling. Where are you going to go?
Well, I mean, W got a pretty good football history.
I'm not saying that they don't.
Yeah,
but the current. See, because
you said history. Got a good history.
They have a history, but the kids that are coming through are not looking at the history.
Okay, I'll give you
that. They're looking at what did you do last week? What did you do last year? What is your season like now? And I think that's the place where Marshall and WVU lose on some of these kids who. That's keeping them from being able to sign some of these kids because I just don't know. I don't know if we've got the current history of the two teams, our two schools, to pull in the great athlete, the great quarterback.
But I see, I sort of disagree with that, because like anybody can be turned around if you get those right guys. I think the problem is just recruiting. Like I said, you're competing against Texas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Oklahoma. You're competing against organization. I keep saying organization, but you're competing against colleges who have a recruiting base out of Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and going into Florida. If you look at WVU's roster, yeah, they got some Florida cats on there, a few, not like they used to have, but they got mainly East Coast cats. They don't have, I haven't seen one player from Texas yet. So you're not getting.
How about any Georgia? They got
maybe one or two Georgia, but you're not getting the talent from Texas, where back in the day when you were in the Big East and you're competing against Miami, Syracuse, Rutgers, a lot of the recruiting was coming from Pennsylvania, the New Jersey area, Ohio, and some West Virginia, but mainly Florida. And they were able to go to Florida, able to go to Georgia, able to go to Alabama and get some of those guys up. I mean, even at State back in the day, right? We had a plethora of cats from Florida.
Yes.
You're not getting those same cats now. You're getting a lot of cats from the East Coast. And I'm not trying to be like have regional bias, but we're competing against Texas teams, and they got full of Texas players that we ain't, full of Texas, Alabama, and Louisiana players that we ain't getting. I don't even see one Louisiana player on here.
And when you start talking about high school football,
it's different down there, bro.
It's different.
That's what I'm saying. It's totally different.
It's a life.
Yeah. I think Pac-Man Jones said this, and I think he said this. He was like, if you look, I think it was him. It was a former player who said this, if it wasn't him. But he said, when you look at Texas and Florida, he's like, Florida got the best athletes. We're talking about high school football. Texas got the best facilities. If you look at these facilities in Texas, high school facilities are comparable to WVU. They're spending millions on stadiums and workout facilities. And you're getting guys who already are, in essence, in college programs at Texas Tech, at Baylor, at TCU, at Oklahoma. We ain't getting those cats. So how are we necessarily supposed to compete in a conference where we're not even making a dent in recruiting? You see what I'm saying?
I do. And
we're not competitive on that end.
And we both know this. Recruiting is the most critical piece of building a program.
Yeah.
And at some point you used to could do this. You could get a quarterback, maybe a year or so later get a good receiver, maybe a year or so later get a good running back, and then all of a sudden now you're pretty good. By the time you do that, try to do that now, that quarterback's gone.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't see one, and I'm scrolling through the roster now, I don't see one cat from Texas. I see maybe one or two cats from Oklahoma. You see a lot of Georgia cats, a lot of players from the region. We're talking about Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, D.C., some New Jersey. But like I said, you're not playing against the same type of players. So at the same, and again, I'm not trying to disparage the players that are on the roster, but I'm saying Texas football is different.
Yes.
Florida football different. I'm saying Texas, if you look California, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, that football is just different down there.
And it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's different. They put way more resources into it, and it's just different, man.
Okay, so all right, so let me do this, and I'm not banging on our state, but comparable to West Virginia. Where do you think we are lacking in how we approach the success of our young athletes? And I'll throw this out first, okay? I think our problem is we're in the moment. Like we are, we're rooting our kid on to be good in youth football, be good in middle school, and be good in high school. And that good isn't great enough to maybe go to one of these D1 schools. So I think, and I could be wrong, we're not pushing our kids that want to be in sports, who want to play college ball, maybe want to go to the NFL. We're not pushing them to to understand what the requirements are.
I disagree with that totally. The problem with West Virginia is just that West Virginia has about 1.3 million people that would fit inside the city of Houston and probably not even make a dent. We're just small. We don't have enough people. Again, if you took a city in Texas, you could take the entire population of West Virginia and fit it inside a city in Texas. Or a city in Louisiana.
I buy that.
So what I'm saying is you just don't have the numbers. You're not going to recruit. If you just recruit the city of Baton Rouge or city of New Orleans or just the city of Houston, they're not going to. That's not enough talent to just fill to fill a whole roster.
Okay,
I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. And I would say number two, it's not about the mentality. It's just that again, we don't have the numbers. So that's number one. And number two, our kids don't run track. So if you look at Louisiana, if you look at Texas, if you look at Florida, those kids run track. I don't know if you're 5'9" and you run a 4.4 and you're a wide receiver, why are you playing AAU? Stop it. Go run track. Your future is probably not in basketball. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to, diminish your dream, but run track. And then maybe you could build it up a little better, because the problem is that once you start competing nationally, again, you may have the skill set to compete nationally, which I think our kids do. I think there's been too much of a premium on skill set and not athleticism.
Well, okay, I'm going to agree and we just don't have
the numbers.
The numbers. I get the numbers, yeah. but we ought to be able to be producing and continuously producing a couple, 2 or 3.
We have to. Well, if you look at the roster.
Well, I was just going to say, look, because what I know is when we produce one, when we get one that's going to college and is playing, they get to the next level.
But here's the thing, though. We are producing great because you look at the Chicago Bears, I think they played on Monday night. We had 2 kids from West Virginia on an NFL roster.
And I'm supporting that. The question is, those 2 kids, what are they doing? Why am I not trying to figure out what they did?
They just got the metrics, bro.
I don't think it's just the metrics. I don't think it's just the metrics.
But here's the thing, though. Everybody's not going to make it. If you take the city of Houston, they're not producing like 5, 10, 15, 20 NFL players, and they probably triple our population. They're not doing that. So what I'm saying is that it's a numbers game, and we're only going to produce so much. And that's just, and the ones that we are producing that's kind of on the line, they're not running track.
Well, I agree.
And the athleticism
I agree 100% about the track.
Yeah.
And the fact that these schools don't even have a track team, that's crazy because they don't have anybody coming out. And if I'm a football coach, I'm making sure my kids are running track. Yeah. But my point is, I think that we have had talented kids who could make it, but they can't even get to college because they don't have the work ethic. They don't, because
they're not going to make it anyway. You can go across any city in America, and that's going to be the same conversation. You're going to have them same stories. They're not making it anyway. And I'm saying, like, again, it's a numbers game, because if you have more numbers, then you're going to have the kids who actually have the mindset and the physical acumen to do it.
So are you saying that okay? So if I'm at South Charleston, I'm a junior. I don't have a picture of a guy necessarily, or whatever. I'm in whatever high school. I don't have a picture of a guy who I want to be like. I want to play college.
You do.
I do. That's what I'm saying.
They're all up and down WVU's roster, and they're in the NFL. But my problem is this: when people make those sort of comments, I think we have to start to reverse engineer it. You have to have the mental acumen first. We look at the physical, but you have to have it. They was doing a story on Peyton Manning. Long before he was physically anything, he was developing his mental acumen. So if a guy has the mental acumen, then we can assess if he has the metric and if he has the ability to make it physically. Most kids playing sports, they just don't have the mental acumen to make it, and that's okay.
Here's what bothers me about that is because my belief comes from me making it. My belief is that kid that we don't see, that we don't understand, and we don't who we don't give a chance. Why is he or she not? Why won't you work harder for your dream? Don't give in to what that conversation.
That may not be their dream. Again, even if it is your dream.
But I'm specifically speaking because I know for a fact there's a ton of kids that see a sport and say, "Oh, I want to be in the Olympics."
No, they don't. They don't. Bruh, they just saying that. They're just saying that. You've had the mental acumen way before anything physical was ever developed. You weren't even starting, as you said, you weren't starting as a sophomore. You weren't a superstar, but your mental acumen was there since you were 7 years old. So a lot of guys, they can play, they can do all the things, but they don't necessarily have a deep-rooted belief that they're actually going to do that or they're actually willing to do that. That's only a small number of dudes. Because some dudes, their physical is going to supersede everything, and they're going to be able to have that chance regardless. But for most guys, you got to have the mental acumen, and then all the other things will come later if you're able to develop physically. That's what I'm saying. A lot of guys that say they want to make it, man, they ain't want to make it. They BSing. They don't want that.
See, all right, I'm going to say this for any parents that are listening and has a kid who has any aspirations, whether it's D1 college ball, whether it's NFL, NBA, whatever it is. Playing a game, and I don't care how many games you can play travel sports, you can play 15 games in a weekend if you want. That is not necessarily the ticket. Playing more is not the ticket. Because it's easy to play. It's harder to work. It's harder to work out. It's harder to get out there and run when it's raining. It's hard to get out there running when it's cold. It's hard to get out there running when it's hot.
Again, you can't make a kid do that. They have to want that. Because even if you make them, soon as they get from under your wing, they're not going to do it no more. So you have to, again, you can instill it in them, and you can try to hope that once you release them, they'll do it. But you got to have it mentally first.
See,
it's not about work. It's really about mentally.
And I'm buying exactly. Yeah. I'm buying what you're saying, but like I said, I shared this with my dad, even though like I knew if I'm not working out, I knew he was going to ultimately say something. Like, you're not running this morning.
Did he make you though?
No, he didn't make me.
Okay, then. So that's you making my point.
That's what I said. I
got to have a supporting parent. Yeah, It helps to have a supporting parent, but a lot of guys. I mean, let's face it, man. A lot of guys, the guys who make it, who are consistent, make it, do 10 years in their in a professional sports. They're like you, where they had the support, but they had it mentally. There's very few Allen Iversons who just had enormous talent. That's far and few between who figure out a way to make it based off that. A lot of guys, most guys are just they want it and they're going for it and they're willing to do it. But I'm talking about the guys who make it. But it's a whole bunch of guys who got the physical ability who just ain't got it mentally. And I think that's where.
See, that's just hard for me, and I know we've got to go, but that's it's hard for me, man, to think. If you could look at yourself in the mirror and say, I got the metrics. I got almost all the metrics. I just don't understand why you're not putting that time in.
Because they don't want it. They don't want to play. They don't really want it. They say they want it, but they don't. And hold on, before we go, I got we had a player at WVSU, unfortunately, West Virginia State University football program, unfortunately passed.
Yep.
Jalik Harrington, a very, very sad situation. So I just want to send, an RIP, and just send my deepest condolences to his family and the community at West Virginia State University.
Yeah, that was Terrible situation there altogether. Give one more shout out to Frank Walker. Let's Talk is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. You can visit him at frankwalkerlaw.com. And ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being there, and we'll be back next week.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. frankwalkerlaw.com. Comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
If you fall, dust it off and get back up on your feet. Anything could be a win, yup, even defeat. They say sugar bad for you, why is victory sweet? Couldn't play with big kids, I had to sit in the street and watch from a distance, but over time I grew. If I put in the work, in no time I'm due. Everything that I worked and prayed, I'm okay. If you ask me, how did I do it, I'm gon' say, you gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work. 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 You gotta work.